Welcome to the podcast She is Fab, where we discuss all things fab, women empowerment, and life coaching. My name is Evelyn, also known as the Fab Chieftess, and I am a mindset transformation coach.
Welcome to another episode of the She is Fab podcast. I am Evelyn, your host, mindset transformation coach, and I am joined by Kyle Spyrides. He is from Soul Gazing Photography, which aims to capture the essence of the soul through captivating portraits that tell a story. He primarily works in corporate and the commercial arena and focuses on making your brand stand out from competitors through powerful visuals that work cohesively to reflect your brand identity. He has also had his heart repaired many times over and is inspired to help others realize the power of tuning into their own heart messages. Welcome, Kyle.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, Evelyn.
I'm glad to have you. So tell us a little more about you, Cal. Obviously, we had little intro regarding your business, but also mentioned about your heart being repaired several times. So just give us an overview.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said pretty perfectly, I've got my own business and I've had that for about 6 years, and I really try and capture the essence and the soul of each person. And that started very early on with people like my grandfather. And, I lived with my grandparents for many years. So I was trying to capture their portraits, capture their essence, and they're a generation that's not as photographed as our generation. So for them, they would get the photo. I'd get the photographs ready and start taking some images, and they oh God, Carl, we're gonna get some more images now. We're gonna get some more photos. So yeah, that was a joy. Because I was kind of tearing down the barriers and the walls in those portraits with my grandparents, with my younger cousins, with my whole family. So it actually turned out to be pretty much a family project, and all the portraits were around the family house. So that was kind of the one rule to play off, that they all had to be in this area. And yeah, I would just sit with people, and I'd sit with them for as long as it took until I felt like I captured their soul, captured their essence. So, with my grandfather and that portrait, it was it didn't take long until he was looking out over his veranda. And, he's an architect, he's got his beret on, he's an observer. So he was kind of looking out and he was observing, the view and things like that. So, I just believe that if you talk to someone long enough, they're just going to eventually go to a place where they forget the camera's there, and they go internal, they go into themselves, and they show for a split second like their true essence, who they are, their soul. They show part of their soul, which I think is a real gift to capture.
Yeah, I did take a look at the photography on your social media, and it's a very beautiful. I could imagine it can be a difficult task to one, make your subject comfortable to show that vulnerability, that moment, and also you as a photographer to capture that moment of vulnerability.
Yeah, you have to be really comfortable around people, and I guess look, that probably goes back to you asking me to tell more about myself. I grew up in a pub, very early on, in South Africa, Johannesburg. So my my mother was a um, like an international model, and so she was getting contracts all around the world, and so she would go over to, say, Japan, and then they would extend her contract. So I pretty much was raised by my grandmother, my South African granny, um, and and so they had a pub, and it was a lot safer in South Africa to raise me in the pub, um, and have me around the pub. So I was there. I had my own my little stool. I had my own little TV. Um, and apparently there's stories of me yelling for ice cream from my granny. So I'd go, "Granny, ice cream," So and then when this one weekend, this patron came over and said to me, um, "Kyle, you can't scream for your granny. She's behind there working like a dog." And I went, I call my granny, she will come. So I was very confident, I was very, I guess, I guess it ended up being a good thing. I was surrounded by adults, like 1 to 2 year old kid, as I was growing up, was surrounded by adults, so
Mm-hmm.
um, I think that unconsciously helped me to be around adults. Keeping that in mind, when I came to Australia when I was 2.5, I was introduced to my stepfather's family, and that portrait I was saying, that's my stepfather's father. So I came into the house with my who were going to become my step grandparents, um, and I was walking up the stairs, and my grandmother looked at me, and she said she had this overwhelming feeling from God that she was going to be important in my life. She said she just saw this like lost look in my eyes, like as I was looking around at all these Australians, going, "Who are these people? This isn't my South African family." And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, she had that feeling. She said she still says it today when I give her a call. She's 89 now, but yeah. So, and in fact, she was very important in my life.
Yeah, from
Still
what
is.
I'm hearing so far, you're very close to your grandparents. I mean, like you said, they raised you. So I can
Yes.
imagine that in raising you, that bond just deepened. Were
Yeah.
your grandparents the one who inspired you to go into photography, specifically focusing on capturing the soul, or was something else that inspired you?
Um, I don't know if they were what inspired me. I think I was looking for beauty in everything. So I was just taking photographs of like a wall with like some light hitting it, and then I didn't know what was driving me, but there was some sort of internal drive. They definitely created the space. You know what I mean? So they didn't say, you have to go and be a lawyer or a doctor or um, you know, someone in corporate finance. They just said, you find out what you want to do, because if you enjoy it, you'll do that forever. And my grandfather, with many talks with him, he was an architect because he loved drawing. He loved drawing, and he said to me one day, he goes, Kyle, I haven't worked a day in my life, you know, and here's this like nearly 90-year-old man with this big smile on his face saying he hasn't worked a day in his life, and so for him, he just looked at architect as an extension of his love for drawing.
Gotcha. Now, obviously, you have your own business. So I have to ask, because sometimes when you think of photography, it can start as a hobby. Was it a hobby for you originally and then you transitioned to a business, or was it your intent to always have a photography business?
To be honest, Evelyn, I was just uncovering what that bug, what that keenness was. So the first I remember noticing taking photographs was when I went over to Ireland, and I was on the west coast of Ireland, and I was staying with my stepfather because my stepfather was in Ireland at this time, and so you know there'd be surfers every now and then, and so every time there were surfers, like on this west coast of Ireland, there was a castle there, and there'd be these two surf breaks, Eski right, Eski left, um, and the town I think only had like you know 20, 30 people. So there wasn't much to do besides take photographs when you're there. So that's where I started taking photographs, and I was walking through paddocks, and yeah, just enjoying taking photographs. And the first seed was probably my stepfather saying, do you want why don't you do this as a career? And I kind of laughed at him, like, what do you mean? Like, you can't do photography as a career. And then he goes, but what about your uncle? And then I went, wait a minute, my uncle is a very successful Australian photographer. So yeah, so that I ended up coming back to Australia, it's, chatting to him. Then I went and studied at the same um, place that he studied at 20 years earlier. I did a diploma of photo imaging, um, and then I worked for him. I assisted him, and he was on big jobs with, like the national bank in our country, like big insurance providers, the Wallabies, the Australian rugby team. So he was on these big jobs, and I was there as like one of the assistants. So I was able to see how everything
Mm,
went. The biggest thing was probably seeing the client engagement and interaction, how to manage the project. You've got, like, I guess the production side of it. You've got 8 people, 8 staff, and you're interacting with all of their staff, and you're trying to get this project done, and you're waiting on people, and you've got certain times that you're allowed, and things that obviously always don't go to plan or what you prepared. So yeah, so that was very good seeing probably the top echelon of commercial photography in action.
Mm-hmm. So, are you famous in some way because you had a model mother and then you have an uncle who's an amazing photographer? So, does that make you famous?
Well, I'm on Evelyn's show right now, so I think I'm pretty famous right now.
And
Yeah,
that photo that you
yeah.
have back there, is that your work as well?
Yes, yeah. So that's my grandfather. Yeah, I'm pretty proud of that portrait.
Yeah. Okay. So for those of you that are listening, if you're not, watching YouTube, go to YouTube. You'll be able to see the photo that we're discussing and referencing. And obviously, we'll list all of his social media and how to connect them so you can check out his beautiful photography.
Thanks, Evelyn. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. So tell us about any challenges you might have faced in transitioning to now being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I like to think business um, is just interplayed with life, and as you're going along in life, and different relationships and different challenges, you know, what you want to do still comes out. So for me, I had a big like health problem about 2 months after I finished school, and that kind of turned everything upside down because I had ideas of playing rugby, and you use the word famous there, and becoming a famous rugby player, or playing for a national team, and like really succeeding in that world. And yeah, the health implications I had really put a dent in that. And there was even a time where I spent about 6 weeks in hospital, um, but it was touch and go whether I was going to survive, like, every day. So my cousin came in with a whole list of different things that I could study. So she came in one day and she, like, took a like asked me, like, what I might like studying. My grandmother asked me as well, and then she brought this in, and she asked me, okay, where do you want to apply? Because when you get out of here, you got to go somewhere. And at that stage, I had successfully healed myself. Like, I'd gotten rid of what was going to take me out, but I still had to um, consider multiple surgeries, and I had to fix what was going on. So yeah, it was nice to have that in terms of your career, in terms of where you're going to go, that sort of beacon pulling you forward into your future. And I think I still think of that today. Like, to have something in the future that's pulling you forward, especially when you're going through hard times, I think is really important. So that was probably the start of trying to work out where I was going to go, and then eventually ending up a couple of years later, I was in Ireland, and then I was taking photographs, and then I started into photography. And then from that, yeah, you just learn quickly that you really need to understand the business side of things, because which really does come down pretty simply to contacts and relationships, and connections. So for anyone out there, like, to not overwhelm, like, just look at that. Um, there's 8 billion people on this earth. How many people can you impact? There's definitely lots of people. So um, yeah, so the challenges probably are trying to find your core message, your identity, who you are, and trying to deliver that, connect that. Do you know what I mean? So that's what
Mm-hmm.
I do for brands, and trying to work that out for myself is interesting, as I've been going through transition lately into a different sort of career scape sort of area. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, so when I first started doing my research on you, as you
Yes,
know, my
yeah,
job as a host,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I noticed that you have, two different profiles, right? You have your photos, and then you
yeah.
have one where really you're talking to an audience about broader messages, right? Messages more related towards living a better life, mindset, health, what have you. I'm
Yeah.
curious as to why they're separate and not tied together, because I feel like your photography and what you're capturing there is a portal that relates to the message that you're putting out there.
Good observation. I like this. Is a bit of a coaching session from Evelyn. I like it. No, no, very good. And it's all. This is guys at home. This is why it's always good to get someone else's viewpoint and someone else to observe and because when you're so into it, I found like that people that I was resourcing from, and that's what I had in my grandparents. I always had people that I could resource from and ask questions and say, what do you think in this situation? Um, I would go into their room every morning and evening and chat to them for hours on end, and just be able to get four different eyes on my problems, the decisions I was about to make. Some of them were pretty serious decisions, like cutting family members out of my life that were kind of sucking me down. So getting other people's viewpoint on what you're doing is so invaluable, like so valuable. It's just it's so important to you. So for me, my dance around that question. My main thing uh, with the photography is that's my business. That's my that's like very much for a different audience, my clients. And now
Hmm.
I do mix that in, say, into the stories, into different sort of things, and I do kind of cross pollinate. So I might put up like a portrait that I've taken that represents what I'm trying to say on my Kyle Spyrides account, and then I'll put something up. I'll put the videos up on the stories of the Soul Gazing Photography account. So I'm happy to interplay it in that setting, but I just don't want to
Hmm.
dilute the water too much, because I know that photography image of me as a photographer that helps clients quickly get a thing. Okay, great. I need some images for my products. I need some images of me and my products. I need some images, who are you? What's your work? Bang, bang, bang. And I was just sitting with someone a couple of days ago, and I was just able to show some photo examples, and they made a decision pretty quickly. So that was good. With the Kyle Spyrides, it's in alignment with the book that I'm bringing out. And the book's called Decide Your Destiny, and that came from sitting down um, and asking myself the question. Look, I've faced death. I've faced, I've held my grandfather's hand as he's passed from this earth. Um,
Mm.
I've done quite a few things. I've been through quite a few challenges. I just want to find out what I'm supposed to be doing here on this earth. I just want to find out I just want to align myself with my purpose on this earth and do the work that
Mhm.
I've been sent here to do. So I just sat in meditation or prayer or whatever anybody wants to call it for that floats their boat. But for me, I just sat there and I just sat quietly for a good while, just trying to source what that was. And then this book came to me, and so I just started writing, and I was overcoming another health challenge. I was running every morning, and then I was writing, and then I was running, and then I was writing. So every time I ran, it kind of, got everything out of my head. And the main message of it, Decide Your Destiny, that came from my grandfather. You know, Years
Mhm.
earlier, I was sitting on the couch in his lounge room. He just turned to me, and he had this big boyish smile, and sun was inside his face, and he just said, "Decide your destiny." And I went, "What?" And he said, "Decide your destiny." And we were just sitting in the lounge room quietly, so it was very. I found it
Mhm.
very random. I said, what do you mean?" He goes, "Make sure in your life, Kyle, that you decide your destiny." So that's where those decide your destiny daily doses come from. Is that different sort of inspirations that I can take from my day, different ways that I could have gone and submitted to victimhood or put the boots up, or not tried harder, and different sort of moments where I went, actually, let me decide what the outcome is here. Let me take control of my
Mhm.
life a little bit more, and take control of my life a little bit more. And each time you do that, it's empowering. So
Mhm.
that's really where it comes from. And then in the book, and with that whole, I guess, message, you know I had like lots of health implications with my heart. So that's the heart, the soul, communicating that, you know, obviously mindset, figuring out what your purpose is, you know, what God or wisdom or a higher power means to you,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then kind of connecting with the youth, you know, like trying to realize that that's a very touchy time where you can go either way. And for me, for many years, um, you know, I went through a real hard time, um, or a real challenging time that created opportunities for me to change in my life. But
Mm-hmm.
in that period of time, I really could have gone either way. You know, I was getting into fights inside of school, outside of school. It wasn't going good. So trying to
Mm-hmm.
connect all those things and realize, okay, there's lots of holes that we can plug in our society. You know, that's, I think, no matter who is in or who your guy is, it feels like as a community we need to plug those holes.
Yeah, well, I know a little bit about your story from our previous interaction with the challenges that you face, with your health. And I want to touch on that, but before we segue to deeper dive on that, your book, is
Yes.
it in transition of being written or is it already out for consumption?
So it's had the first edits, and it's going through the second edit, and I think that's where it's kind of getting a bit stalled.
Mm-hmm.
So at the moment, I would love to say that it's done, but it is on my website there, and I'm setting up pre-orders. So at the moment, it's hopefully going to come out May. You know, like probably looking at those sorts of dates.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just the editing process that's really lovely.
All right. Well, you guys heard it here. Obviously go check him out, check out his work, check out his photography, check out his site, and put your pre-orders in for the book. I mean, the title itself sounds very, empowering and like I want to know more.
Yeah.
Um, so segueing now to your health, tell us a little bit about some of those health challenges because and this is my assumption. I would think that somebody who has experienced challenges with their health has even more drive or will to share a positive message or create a positive impact in the world.
Yes, I think you're right, Evelyn. Thank you. Yeah, in every single heartbeat for me, you know, I really strive for that, and there's no way that I'm perfect, and I do everything right, but yeah, that is definitely a big part of my intent, you know, and I think that's through my health, and then also through the environment my grandparents um, raised me up in. You know, I had very challenging years beforehand, and then I was given, you know, obviously unconditional love. Um, and the space to really be me. So you know that's definitely what helped me, and being with them during that time was very important. So yeah, so the story starts about 2 months after I left school. You know, so I was very much into the gym at that stage, into rugby, and I was coming home from a late night gym session, and you know having my up and go, like little drink that had a bit of protein in it, and walking home, and you know sat on the couch, and Independence Day was playing, so I went, oh cool, you know, love a bit of aliens and a bit of fighter jets, you know, here we go, let's tuck in for the night. And all of a sudden I got really, really hot. So I took all my clothes off. I sat on the couch, stark naked. You know, I was so hot. Then the next split second, I got freezing, like shivering, and I put
Mm.
everything back on. So I just had these huge temperature changes. That was the first sign. Went to bed. Next night, woke up in the middle of the night, walked to the fridge to get some ice, and I collapsed. So I just fell onto the tiles, onto the floor, but I wasn't passed out. I just collapsed, and I was lying there consciously, but I just couldn't physically lift my body up. So I went
Mm.
to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Look, I think you've got gastro. Take these tablets. You should be fine." Went home, took the tablets, and then I threw the tablets straight up. And I think that's when I really knew, all right, something's not right here. And then for a while, excuse the explicitness, but it was coming from both ends. So it was coming
Mm-hmm.
out both ends nonstop. Um, didn't know which way to go, Evelyn, and so it was not good for quite a few days, and I was staying it was a rare moment where I was staying with my mother, because she had my South African grandmother over and different sort of family, and my brother, and we were all staying together for a period of time. And I kept saying, I need to go to hospital, I need to go to hospital. And then eventually they took me down to my grandmother, my Australian grandmother, the parent, the grandparents that became my parents. She took me up to my uncle, who's a chiropractor, but has a lot of understanding of viruses, and he's learned in a lot of different areas in health. And I was walking down the hallway and he looked at me and he said, this guy's got a virus. You need to take him to the doctor. If the doctor doesn't take him to the hospital, you take him to the hospital, because he's violently ill. So he took me to a doctor, and the doctor saw me. And this is a doctor that I've had for many, many years, Evelyn. And he's this lovely Chinese doctor. He spent years in hospitals learning. 10 years earlier, he spent a lot of his time in the hospital, and now he was helping people in his practice. And he said, 10 years earlier, when I was in the hospital learning, and training, there's this thing that I was taught, and there's these dots on the ends of your fingers. And he said, what these dots mean is that there's an infection on your heart. And so I went, okay. And then I was so sick at this time. So my peripheral vision was kind of clouded. It was kind of like I had a huge vignette around me. So I was so ill that I wasn't really emotionally taking everything in. I was just going, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So he put me in an ambulance and they rushed me off to the hospital. And then when I was in the hospital, I said, family, I said, I can't excrete, I can't pee or poo. And so, and it was only a few days before where everything was coming out. So I was like, I just can't, what's going on? And so they got the nurse over, and the nurse looked at my paperwork and said, what the hell are you doing here? You're supposed to go to ICU. The reason you can't excrete is because your organs are shutting down. And then they rushed me to ICU. The cardiologist put a pipe down my throat. Like I said, we're about to put a pipe down your throat, and we're going to put you to sleep. And like I said, I was so out of it. So I was like, oh, okay, yep, sure, no worries. And they put me to sleep. And this is where the story takes a turn for everyone at home, in terms of what they're comfortable with. But for me, this is what happened, and this is my truth. So my mother called my stepfather in Ireland, and my stepfather, he was very integral in my life, and he really cared about me. And he was also a chiropractor, but he was learned in kinesiology and different sort of things. And I think we're all seeking something. So my mother was seeking an answer. What do we do? Because they said, if we operate tonight, he most likely won't make it. If we don't operate, he most likely won't make it. It's 50-50 either way. You have to make the call, but regardless, even if we don't, he could die. So she called my stepfather, and he said, she told him all the information, and he said, look, you're over there. You've got all the information there. You need to make the call. Personally, I would think he's too weak to operate on. But at the end of the day, it's your call, So they didn't operate. I woke up about a week later, and my stepfather sat opposite me. So they'd flown him over, and he was there. And he said, look, Kyle, this is the situation. You've got a 3-centimeter bug eating a hole into your heart. If we don't do anything about it, you're going to die. And he said, you can go down the medical route. This is all the paperwork. This is all the information. However, if you do this, what's going to happen is they're going to cut a part of your heart off, and replace it with the metal attachment. And you're going to have health implications the rest of your life. And these are all the implications. This is how your health's going to be compromised. So, I was 18 at the time, and I just thought, wow, this is really happening, and then he said, there's another option. And he said, there's a thing called the Alkaline Diet. So basically what it is you do a juice fast, and you starve the body of all the sugars in the body. So you starve the bug of all the sugars. So basically you're driving the bug out, from the inside out. So that's the theory behind it. I said, has it worked? He said, yes, it's worked with everyone I've helped. But he said, at the end of the day, it's your decision. I just want you to be informed. I'm not telling you which way to go down. I just want you to be informed. And for me, all I knew at that time was weights and protein. Like my nutritional understanding wasn't extensive. So, but I just thought, look, I trust you as a man. I trust my stepfather. Let's give this a go. So we went in, and he handed me beetroot juice, and I went to spit it out straight away. I went, "Oh my god, have I made the right choice? This is disgusting."
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so the program, was juices, salads, like no sugar, no carbohydrates, no protein. The amino acids were from the spinach and different things in the greens. So yeah, it was juices and salads, and then vitamins. My grandmother gave me tapes, so I was listening to lots of tapes. Um, about valleys, peaks and valleys. That's all I remember. And then, I was doing visualizations over my heart, saying heal, heal. So I was doing all these things that I was very uncomfortable about, as anyone would be who hasn't done any of this stuff before. So
Mm-hmm.
I thought looking after myself was, picking up weights. So I was doing all these things that were totally out of my comfort zone. Um, and I had a few interesting experiences. First the cardiologist came in and said, "All right, we're going to operate." And we said, "Well, like, let us know what the options are, because we don't want to just cut it off." And he goes, "There's no option. This is the only way it can be done." And so great, So my stepfather questioned and said, "Look, just tell us what size the bug has to get to until it's like not a problem." And he wouldn't give it to us, but he kept pushing, and eventually said, "Look, if it gets to under 0.5 centimeters, it's a non-issue."
Mm-hmm.
And so we were like, "Oh, great, real great." And then he walked out in a huff and a puff out of the room, and so we were like, "Okay, look, we've got to get to 0.5 centimeters. We've got a goal." So we kept going, kept doing just everything. And for me, I didn't realize what was going on, but because I was trying to heal myself whilst I was being, how do I say, I guess, accommodated in the hospital, it was obviously upsetting a lot of people. Um, Probably 70-80% of my family were thinking, "What am I doing? Like, I'm an idiot. What do you think I'm doing?" And then, more importantly, the nurses, they were grabbing my. One day I was coming back, and they were grabbing my, from the toilet, and they were grabbing my vitamins, and they said, "We're going to throw this in the bin." And I went, "What are you doing?" I was like bloody grabbing my vitamin bag back, and and they were saying, like, "You're not listening to Prof. You're not listening to Prof." So obviously they felt, I guess, hurt, or they felt like they knew the right way.
Mm-hmm.
The problem was they felt like they knew the only way. So there was a lot of that confrontation, which was very new to me, because I grew up very naive. Every doctor's good, every policeman's good, every fireman's good, and so I realized, okay, there's obviously different egos at play, and there's different, offense that you could be causing to people. So yeah, so I kept doing it, and then 3 weeks later he came in. He said, "Oh, we're going to operate," and we went, "Oh, whoa, hold the bus. What's the what's the digits, doc? What are the numbers? What's going on?" So he gave us the
Mm-hmm.
paperwork, everything, and he said, and we kept asking, "All right, so what's the bug size at?" Like, as we were looking through, um, and eventually, again, took a while, and eventually he said, "Look, it's at 0.2 centimeters." So me and Ward went, "Yeah, yeah." We were like, we high fived. We were like, "Oh my god, we did it! Like, this thing actually works!" Like, because I
Mm-hmm.
believed in him, but I didn't necessarily believe that it could work. Like, I was like, "I'm going to do this and believe that it's going to work as much as I can," but I don't know. So we
Mm-hmm.
were cheering. We go, "Yeah, yeah," and the doctor walked out, like, this time, like, cursing. So he was really upset. And anyway, so I stayed in the hospital a little bit while longer, and then I went to leave, and I was being pushed out in a wheelchair. And the register, which is the guy who communicates with me, from the doctor, and he would see me obviously a lot. He was this lovely Somalian dude, and me and him just got along. We became great buds. And I was leaving, and he grabbed my shoulder, and I turned to him, and I was like, "Oh, see you, man. It's been great to catch up with you." He said, "Look, I'm just here to deliver a message." I went, "Okay, well, shoot." He said, "Look, the prof wants you to know that your lungs are going to be full of blood. You're going to choke to death in your sleep, and you're going to die, within about 2 months of leaving the hospital." And so I've just started crying. Like, I was just like, and the family member that was pushing me in the wheelchair, I just like waved. I was like, get me the hell out of here." So that was a very intense experience. And then I came out, and I was hugging everyone, and I was feeling the sun for the first time. And it was like, you you embrace every little second of life once you go through that. And then, but the thing was, Evelyn, is I healed my heart, so I got rid of the bug naturally, but
Mm-hmm.
my heart valve wasn't closing properly. So in order for my heart valve to close properly, I had to either replace it or repair the valve. And obviously, like before with the metal attachments, I didn't want any replacement. I wanted to try and get a repair. So I went to a new cardiologist, told him about our experience, told him, and he said, "Look, I play golf with that guy on the weekends. Like I don't want to hear anything bad about him." And then my family started to arc up, and I just said, everyone out of the room, And I just needed one good relationship with one cardiologist. I was like, I just need one. I told him what we did, healed the heart, and he goes, "Oh, look, I don't necessarily believe it." I went, "Okay, whatever. you know, what can we do now? Like, let's start taking some steps forward." And he said, "Look, your heart's actually a little bit better. Um, I went from a 0% chance of repairing my valve to a 30% chance." So I came back to him every 3 months. The percentage kept getting higher and higher. And eventually, 12 months after surgery, he said, "Look, you've got a 70% chance of repairing your valve." He said he believes the trauma from the bug had alleviated, and I had a bit more of a chance of repairing my valve. And so, in the meantime, I was also contacting people in Germany, asking them about stem cell research. Stem cell research hadn't got to the point yet where they could repair valves, because your valves, like your knee, it's constantly being used. So I went, called my stepfather in Ireland. I said, "What do we do?" And he said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Look, I think it's time to operate." He said, "Well, then go ahead for it." So then I went in, and I had two people taking me in, my grandparents. Um, they were the only people that knew the time and everything, because I just wanted to keep it very, very minimal. Like how I was in the hospital on that whole experience was like a very kind of Buddhist way of living, in terms of minimalizing, like very minimal things you would do. Um, Eating very like clean, and just kind of less relationships that could be, I guess, emotionally like impact me. So I was very focused on my end goal, to repair my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I went into surgery, and went in to have the open heart surgery. And so open heart surgery, you're pretty much dead for about 5 hours. They cut your chest open, they cut your heart out of your body, and then they cut into your heart, and then they have to do the repair work. And so I woke up screaming, and this is how focused I was on repairing my heart. I woke up screaming, and I was screaming, "Repair or replacement, repair or replacement."
Oh my
And
goodness.
yes, I was so focused on that. And a family member came over and grabbed my hand, and they said, "Kyle, it was a repair. It was a repair." And probably can't swear on here, but I was going, "Fuck," going, "Shit." I was just like, I was cursing. I was losing it because I was so happy. So I, and I feel for those other people that were in the ICU that day, but I was so elated, that I could repair the valve, and then that the repair worked. But then,
Mm-hmm.
Evelyn, as you might know or might have heard, like, anytime you do anything surgical, or anytime you enter the body, it's not necessarily a one and done. So for me, the doctor came over and said, "Oh, look, we're going to have to keep you on this machine right now. You're in heart block." I said, "What do you mean? What's heart block?" I was like, "I'm sure I knew everything, all the things that could go wrong. What's this heart block thing?" And he said, "Look, it's rare, but sometimes when they cut into the heart, they could nick the electro signals in the heart, and that tells the heart to pump blood into the heart and out. So into the atrium, out of the ventrium. So those electro signals are naked to the human eye. So there's a possibility that they clipped one of those. But we'll put this machine on you, and by the end of the week, your heart should get back into normal rhythm." And then at the end of the week, he went, "Okay, look, it seems like they most definitely clipped one of those. We're going to have another surgery, and we're going to have to put a battery into your heart now." And so I was like, "Oh, crap!" So I went and did that. That surgery, and that scar was a bit more tender. That it was quite painful. And yes, so I had that, and then 6 weeks later, I was going to go for my provisional license. So I came through the whole surgery, everything. My stepfather was still here, like kind of helping me. He got me into ocean pools as soon as I could, like move my body. I was like this robotic sort of thing. Every day you're having to like cross your arms and try and lift yourself up. So it's very interesting, because it totally totally impacts the way that you always lived. You know what I mean? So simple things,
Mm-hmm.
getting up out of bed is a complete mission, and it is super painful. And I was trying to avoid as many painkillers as I could. So yeah, eventually 6 weeks later, I was going to go for my license, and I was feeling a bit bloated. The person I was with said, no, we're taking you to your cardiologist because we're not mucking around. And which I'm thankful for. And I went to the cardiologist, and he did an echocardiogram, and he said, Kyle, you're hours away from dying. I went, what? What do you mean? Like again? Like this thing again? And he said, yeah, your you, your pericardium is filling up with blood, and it's filled up with so much blood, that your heart could pretty much explode. So I went, wow, how did this happen? He goes, well, tell me, how did it happen? Why didn't you see anyone? Why didn't you go? And I went to my doctor, then I went to the local hospital down where I was living, and he said, he said, did they give you an echocardiogram? I said, no, they gave me an ECG. And so he went, I'm going to sue that place. Anyone with heart surgery, you give them an echocardiogram. And now the difference is echocardiogram is like an ultrasound. So it's like an
Mm-hmm.
ultrasound for your heart, so you can actually see inside. The ECG is where they put the things on you, and they kind of check your heart rate. And so yeah, so he was really upset. He rushed me over. They rushed me over. They put I think it was vitamin A. I can't remember which one it was, but they put these two bags into me, and they filled me up, and they went, because we're about to take a whole bunch of blood out of your body. And so I knew what the procedure was, and I knew it was coming, so I was turning my face away. And I was awake for this surgery. And the surgeon said, are you all right, Kyle? And I turned over, and then I saw this like 20 centimeter sized needle that was about to go to my
Ooh.
body. I was like, Doc, can I get some more morphine up in here? And then she looked at the nurse, and they went, oh, we got to watch this guy, like I got to put him on the list. He seems to be keen on the morphine. I was like, no, I'm just, I need more morphine now. And so he put the needle into my chest, and it went in to the pericardium, which is the wall that surrounds the heart, and he pulled out 2 liters of blood. So the nurse held up these 2 giant bags of blood. So you think about a 2 liter milk bottle. So that was that sort of another health scare. And with the heart, I mean, it's very like it's management. It's really health management. Um,
Mm-hmm.
at the start of 2020, I also I had a procedure that I had to consider with my heart. So another like surgery process, and another procedure after that, and different ways I could go. And I hadn't changed one number, which was my ejection fraction. Now, your ejection fraction basically measures how well your heart functions. And if you're around 20% and lower, it's pretty much touch and go. You can't go on airplanes, and you can die pretty easily once you get right
Mm-hmm.
low on the numbers. Normal people are around 55 to 65. And I had been sitting at 34 for years after my surgery, for 7 years, 8 years. So that was a number that I wanted to change. And I had a whole lot of people contact me and say, Kyle, aren't you worried about this virus? Like you've got pre-existing health conditions, like, aren't you in a high category? And for me, I just flipped the script, and I just went, well, it's time for me to bloody bolster my immune system as much as I can. I've done it before. I've healed myself. Let me go. And so I went running every morning, juicing, meditating, everything I could do. Vitamins, got all sorts of different vitamins for the heart: hawthorn, berry, pomegranate, CoQ10, ubiquinol. I got all these sorts of different things for the heart, and I was really focused on healing it, and trying to change that number. That number from 34% to try and get up closer to normal people's heart function. And so, which is interesting because that's how well my heart was functioning. Yet I was able to go for these runs and everything. I started off with a little jog around the block, and then eventually got up closer and closer. So about 6 months later, or quite a few months later, I went in for the test, and the electrosurgeon sat there, and he said he was gobsmacked. He said, I don't know what to do with you. We're going to do these procedures. We're going to, like we had all this lined up, but I don't know what to do. I said, what do you mean? He goes, your heart, one of the reasons obviously we're going to do the procedure was because your heart's in AF, atrial fibrillation. And most people's hearts don't enjoy AF, and AF is usually what happens in people that are older, like your grandparents and everything. It just means your heart's being out of rhythm. So he said, your heart is enjoying being out of rhythm. And this only happens within 5% of people straight after surgery. So I don't even know how the hell your heart's enjoying AF. Your heart's gotten stronger, um, and your ejection fraction has gone up to, because he was looking at all the other numbers. I said, what about my ejection fraction? He said, ejection fraction's gone up to 49%. And I was just
Wow.
like stoked because I was like, that number, I've gone in, I've had that many echocardiograms, I've had that many procedures, and that number has just not changed. It's just been stubborn.
Mhm.
It's been a stubborn number. Um, and yeah, it changed. So that was like remarkable. So for me, it was another example of, you know, like you can look at someone like Wim Hof, who's another example of it. How you can control your physiology, how you control your health. Um, so that's where, through all that experience, decide your destiny, decide your health, decide your future. That's where it all comes into play. Um, and that's why I guess I'm probably able to give so much energy back to it, because for me, there's no truth like the truth that you experience. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's my story.
I really appreciate you sharing that. There was a lot there. I
Yes,
mean,
yeah.
everything that you had to go through at such a young age, at that, um, not being certain that the doctor, that first doctor you were interacting with, was having your best interest at heart, making this dietary change, having, that virus, that bug, diminish to a point where you're like, yes, we're successful, victory, and then getting that bad news as you're leaving the hospital, and then going through all these surgeries. Like, I'm amazed, like your resilience in dealing with this and reframing it for the positive and putting positive energy out there. It's amazing. A lot of us that are healthy don't always count our blessings, and we take that for granted. So, like, hearing your story, I mean, again, I appreciate you sharing that, and being brave to share that as well.
Thank you, Evelyn.
And
Yeah.
I have to say, I learned a lot about medical procedures and the heart. So,
So, yeah, I didn't mean to be educational, so specific, but I think
no, I
that's
love it.
it's part of it. And that's the thing. Like, I was very healthy at that time of my life. Like, I was very fit. I was
Hmm.
playing rugby Saturdays and Sundays, and that's why a lot of people ask the question, how did you get the bug? And they went
Hmm.
down 8 different possibilities and they investigated the heck out of it. And they said, look, you just got one in a billion chance that you got this bug. There's no reason for you to get this bug. There's no source that we've investigated, but we can't connect anything to why you got this
Hmm.
bug. And I think for me, I was probably happier going, all right, one in a billion chance. What am I going to do with my life now? How am I going to react? Um, Rather than, oh, you did this thing, or you took this supplement, or um, you're working your heart overtime, playing rugby Saturday and Sunday. That's why it happened. So it didn't make sense for me, like such a healthy person, to get something like this. So
Hmm.
I think that's what really made me aware of, okay, what is health? Maybe looking
Hmm.
trim and buff, and I think I was 95 kilograms and I didn't have any fat on me, and great, I look ready to go and play some rugby, but is that really healthy? Like, is eating
Hmm.
that much protein really healthy? Those sorts of things. So yeah, for me, I think it was just really interesting to see that someone so healthy can have something like this happen. Um,
We're always surprised when that happens, and somebody who's, physically fit or lean and active, when they get really sick, it's like, well, what was the cause? Why would this happen when they're, for all intents and purposes, a healthy individual?
yes, yeah, and there is family that have had heart problems and everything, but that they couldn't work out how my heart would have been weak if I was playing rugby every Saturday Sunday. How, yeah, and I think that's the thing. You've got to take it in your stride. I think that's really important. Um,
Hmm.
because no one enjoys sitting in. Well, I don't think anyone enjoys. I don't enjoy sitting in my own wallowing. Like, and yeah, obviously there was times where I was, um, which I think everyone can play the victim. There was probably times where I
Hmm.
played the victim, or woe is me and poor me and all that sort of jazz. Especially when I was in hospital, and I really wanted to play rugby. That was the one thing that was pulling me forward in my future. That I was going to play rugby one day. You know,
Hmm.
um, I was going to play for the Springboks somehow, and I had that future goal, So, that pulled me forward, and then realizing that, it'd be dangerous for me now with like this battery and everything to go and play rugby. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Trying to accept that, that was pretty crushing. So there were definitely many moments where, I wasn't very positive, and I was very distraught, and yeah, probably destroyed in ways. And I mean, I like
Mm-hmm.
to use terminology like the rebirth. Like I think a lot of I've heard this term before, but the death and rebirth, and I think that happens a lot in your
Mm-hmm.
life. Whether they're your belief systems, whether they're what you thought was reality or truth, um, what your reality was. I'm going to go and do these things in my life,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to maybe put the death to something that's holding you back and rebirth something beautiful, like a phoenix
Yes.
in your life that's going to get
Yes.
you there.
Well, I mean, you could have gone the other way, right? You're only human. We're not always on or always positive or always grateful, right? It's what you do in the moments when you find yourself in depression or dealing with some sort of issue. How do you manage? How do you address that? How do you get yourself out of it, right? That's what matters, right?
Yeah.
I tell folks just because you have these periods where you may be suffering from one thing or another, that's not your reality. You have a choice to adjust your perception and your reality.
Yeah, exactly. You always have a choice, always how you react. Yeah.
Yes. So, Kyle, again, I'm super grateful that you've shared your nuggets of wisdom. We've talked about your business, we've talked about the soul photography, as well as the message that you put out there, which you remind me of Jay Shetty, to be honest, with how you come
Oh, cool.
across it and how you share. Hope you take it as a
Oh, thanks.
compliment.
Yeah, sure. I've got to check out more of his stuff, but I've heard of him. Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, definitely check out more of his stuff because my first interaction with your social media, where you have these videos that you're talking about, different subject matter, that's who came into my mind. I was like, he reminds me of Jay
Oh,
Shetty.
cool. Okay, I got to check it out now. I need to see what you mean.
Yes.
No, that's
Um,
awesome.
but yes, I am grateful that you shared your story, that you educated the audience, on some of the challenges you faced with your health. And like I said, I learned, I'm sure they've learned more about heart health. But more importantly, you're doing so much with your life, so much positivity that you're putting forth despite that experience. You haven't let that frame you or prevent you from living your best life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You've got to look at, in spite of this, how am I going to succeed? And how can I shift this? How can I shift the scars? How can I look at the scars down my chest every morning and go from looking at it as anxious and worried about my heart, and how can I look at it as, this is inspiration for me to do great
Mm-hmm.
things and continue to do greater things and keep going and inspire other people who are out there, and because there's so many more people that have gone through harder things than me, and there's so many more people that are going through harder things. And it doesn't have to be a measurement. There could be people that are going through a
Mm-hmm.
breakup right now, and just totally distraught and need someone's help. So I think that's what it's about. It's about us connecting, coming together, and
Mm-hmm.
working with the light, and really trying to bring light into each other's lives, and I think that's important. For a lot of years, I realized as well. I will say this: it's the same thing with closure. I thought I had closure when I went over and saw my grandfather, held his hand, cared for him up until he passed away. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and even though that was such an emotionally volatile situation on both ends, I was so grateful that I was able to do that, 3 years ago, and a couple of years ago, sorry, and go and care for him. But I also, it was hard saying goodbye to him and seeing him in such a weak state. So, you know, 6 months later, 12 months later, I had someone tell me, look, you've changed, you think parts of you have changed, and realizing that,
Mm-hmm.
even though mentally, or I can feel like I'm okay, I'm good, there's something in my body, in my spirit, my soul that I've got to maybe do some work on always. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and with my heart, that was the same thing. I thought I was good. I thought I was solid. I thought, it's always my mental. Okay, great, is good. But then I got to come back to my heart, my soul, and realize, okay, why am I getting anxious when I have a cold shower and I'm thinking about my heart. I'm worried about my heart, or I'm about to go for a run. I'm worried about my heart, exploding or something. And I had to realize that, these little undercurrent thoughts are actually like not healthy. Like, how do I kind of wean these out and change the script?
Mm-hmm.
So even years and years later, being positive, going through all that, I still had those little anxiety thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
and my observation of me and other people's observation was, oh, you're positive, yeah, you're going for it, but you don't realize there's always work to be done on yourself. I think that's the
Yes,
key message.
that is indeed true. That is a very much key. So, Kyle, how can folks connect with you, learn about your services, and just about you as an individual?
Yeah, for sure. So the best place you can connect with me, I guess, see my ugly mug every day is, or see my mug every day is at Kyle Spyrides. So I'm on Instagram, Kyle Spyrides, and obviously I post on Facebook as well. But YouTube is where the videos go up first. And yeah, the book is coming out on kylespyrides.com. And yeah, and then my photography is Soul Gazing Photography. So you can follow me on channels there, and yeah, look forward to seeing you there. And always comment, ask me any questions. Always happy to communicate with people.
Great. And we're going to put all the details, guys, in the podcast details and the YouTube details. I highly recommend that you guys go check him out. He has some beautiful photography. And the message that he's putting out there is really positive. Again, like I said, reminds me of Jay Shetty. And his book is coming out too. So, really excited to learn more about you and your experience through that book as well.
Yes. Yeah, I'll send you a copy for sure.
Oh, thank you. I'm all about supporting, so I always like buy people stuff because that's my thing. No, we have to
You're so
support
kind.
our fellow entrepreneurs and people that we interact and engage with authentically. So when I say that I'm going to be following your journey and checking out your book, I actually mean it.
Okay. Thank you, Evelyn.
You're welcome. And then any last words you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, for me now, I guess my biggest takeaway is realizing that in every single heartbeat, I've got the decision.
Mm-hmm.
Just whether it's deciding your destiny or deciding to succumb to like a victimhood train of thought, or a victor train of thought. So in
Mm-hmm.
every single heartbeat of your life, that's a gift. You've got that heart that's pumping blood around your body. Obviously you've got the amazing brain. You've got so many organs, but just think of your heart and think of doing right by your heart. Because a lot of my health implications, I also think, connected to emotional side, because there was a lot of emotional turmoil in my life, and I was cutting myself off and shutting myself off. And I was always pushing
Mm-hmm.
things down, really, really great at doing that. And I was cutting myself off emotionally from things. And I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't embracing my heart and embracing the strength that I might have to handle these things. So my message would be just like, I know there's a famous song about it, but just tune into your heart, really tune into your heart and connect with your heart, and do things that are in your best interest and your future's best interest, and don't deny what your heart is saying, what your heart's communicating.
Yes, that's a lovely message. I hope that those that are listening or watching, something in here has connected with you, that you've been informed and educated, and that you will support Kyle on his amazing journey. Thanks
Thanks,
again,
Evelyn.
Kyle, for being on.
Thank you so much, Evelyn. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You are welcome. This was a great conversation. All right, guys. So that's a wrap. As I always say, preparation, accountability, execution, and resolve are keys to your success. Until next time.